Hi guys, and welcome to the channel. We are in our third installment of a sit down with Jonathan Smart, who is a partner at Insight Law in Cardiff. And today we're going to be talking about buy-to-let remortgages. So some of you may know that in my experiences so far within property development, property investing, whichever way you want to cut it, I focus mainly on flips. But as I look towards the future now, I'm going to be looking more and more at buy to let, buy to keep. So my model is I will buy a property that needs a little bit of work. I'll probably buy that property either for cash or using bridging finance, and then I'm going to look to remortgage it. So John, a couple of questions. If I'm going to remortgage a property, say I've got my property on bridging finance and I feel like I've added value to that property and I want to remortgage it at a higher rate than what I bought it for, a higher value than what I bought it for. How do I do that? Do I just go straight to the lender? What would you advise, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think in this instance, especially with investment properties, it's really worth going to a broker who does deal with a lot of investment properties, buy-to-let properties, and make sure that they're in the market and in that marketplace regularly, and they can give you guidance on the best lenders, both across the board, but also that fit you as well in your personal circumstances. Obviously, a lot of people with investment properties now would be in limited companies, obviously with all the different rules, regulations, tax changes that have happened in the last few years. So a lot of investors now have that in limited companies. So again, it becomes more of a complex situation if you are looking to refinance after a refurb project. Again, you're probably best placed to then speak to a broker who would give you more bespoke and specific guidance on which lender suits you and your criteria. For instance, if you've done a quick refurb and you're looking to refinance early, some lenders won't like that, but there are other lenders who will allow that to take place. I'm probably not placed to talk too much onto that, because that's much more probably if you get a broker back on who can really give you the sort of more incisive points about how exactly the lenders look at that.
So presumably then, after I've spoken to my broker, he's identified the lender, a survey will be carried out on the property. How can I prove to that surveyor then that I've caused significant uplift in the value of that property? Are there any sort of tips or tricks that I can use to do that?
There's a number of different things that you can do, and I think lots of people in property are now looking at ways that they can provide almost a portfolio to that surveyor that comes to the property to show them, before and after photos, certificates for works that have been carried out, whether that's electrical, heating, installation, an extension to the property, again, any planning permission granted, carried out, building regulations, completion certificates, anything to prove the uplift in value, really. Anything that says, this is what we've bought it at, this is why we're claiming that it's now worth this much. So anything that you can do to utilise that and support you, it's really worth sort of putting those things in the property and evidencing it to the surveyor. Obviously, historically and up until fairly recently, people would meet the surveyor at the property and be able to talk it through with them, show them as well, in person. That is difficult at the moment with the rules and regulations we have in place for COVID. That means that that's very unlikely to be happening at the moment. So instead, in lieu of that, what you can do is have a book, but open it up across the kitchen. And I know people will just have across the kitchen worktops and things like that, all the documents that prove this is why we valued it at this much, because ultimately you've got to give yourself the best fighting chance, really.
So what we're looking for, but in its most basic sense then, is for that surveyor to not have to go looking for where the value's been added, for it just to be presented in the most obvious way possible, I guess.
Exactly that, yeah. Just making them their mind up for them ultimately, and showing them what you've done, and as most investors do, don't they? Make sure that they're showing the property off in the best light, really. And again, that can be both in terms of the refurbishment that's been carried out, but also way in which you then show that property off can be really beneficial to the end value that you then attain, really.
Would you, well, I suppose they would do it themselves in terms of doing like a Hometrack report or something like that to see what was sold around, or it's just sort of as broad as it's long, I suppose?
Yeah, you'd like to think that they'd be doing that themselves as a surveyor, especially who's in the market to protect that lender. But again, if you've got that information readily available, why not provide it? And again, you're helping them to make an hour-long survey into a 20-minute survey, and their job is done in a more efficient fashion for them. So it's not going to do you any harm, as long as the numbers are good, I suppose, from your perspective.
Yeah. We speak to the broker, the surveyor comes. Hopefully, it's all good news in terms of what we can remortgage it for. If I've got a property that is on a bridge, for example, or I've got an investor and I'm paying them back monthly, and I want to reduce those monthly repayments, because typically a bridge is going to be a lot higher than a mortgage. So if I want to do that, time is of the essence. How can I, from a solicitor's point of view or from a legal perspective, hurry this remortgage along? You know what I'm like, John? I'm always, how can I get there in the quickest way possible?
To be in the quickest way possible. Yeah, it's again the sort of the key question, isn't it? How quick can we do this? And a remortgage generally is a fairly quick process. You know, providing you've got everything you need, it's all there. It can be, you know, weeks really. Generally, a sale will take much longer than a remortgage, because the remortgage, you are just looking at that property from the basis of, is it safe to lend? Is it protecting the lender? Is everything in place as it needs to be? Satisfy the lender's criteria. Everything tallies up valuation, and then you can proceed. As I've said previously on a number of occasions, probably boring you on this point, early engagement is key with your professionals, both your broker. You know, don't wait at the end of the bridge. You know, get ahead of it really. Give yourself a little bit of lead on time. You know, valuations maybe a little bit delayed at the moment. Get that sorted. Same with lenders. Get it sorted ahead of time. Give yourself a couple of months sort of lead before you're going to start this process. Same with your solicitor. You know, once you know that that mortgage is going to be progressed through, contact your solicitor, tee them up to it, get them instructed, try and get your pack out, so that you can get the documents back to them, providing them with a nicely packaged up amount of information that they can then work through then.
It would probably be, when you're buying the property, to just have a quiet word. Look, we've got this on a bridge, or I've got this on a bridge, or investor, in 3 months, I need to be remortgaging this. I'm just letting you know that. Is it as informal as that? I don't have to. Doesn't have to be or anything like that.
It's different, I suppose, investor to investor and you know, law firm to law firm, I suppose. But early engagement is key. If the solicitor knows this is what you're planning to do, maybe they'll open a remortgage file for you early. It can be difficult because obviously they're not going to want files opened and sat there not doing anything. But at least if you know that that's the plan, you can look at the documents that you're obtaining ahead of time to make sure they're packaged up, they're ready. But yeah, certainly speaking to your solicitor early, get the file open, get the documents sorted, so that as soon as the mortgage is offered, you're already sort of ahead of time really. You're already sort of, you've eaten into those weeks that you would have lost when the client care pack. And then it's just about packaging up the information that you've got from the property, to make sure that it's all there with your solicitor once the client care pack is sent back to them really.
What happens after that then? So I've given you, or whoever my solicitor is, whoever, all of that information, it's all packaged up. Is the mortgage then offered and there's more to do the other end, or is all the work done prior to the mortgage being offered?
So what you normally have is that the mortgage would be offered. They then send us the offer itself, which again, with an investment property at the moment, lots of lenders will send or conditions list, which will outline all the things that they want and that we've then got to satisfy from the offer. You usually get the offer first and then get, you know, the documents back to your solicitor. And try and do this ahead of time. So what we do, and I know what lots of law firms do now, is set out a list of things that they will need from you. Try and, you know, second guess what the lender's going to want on the vast majority of cases. So you're looking at, if I just run through a few things for you, you're looking at things like, you know, this is a tenanted property, your AST, your short-term tenancy, and the documents that flow from that. So documentation will secure the tenant's deposit, your gas safety certificate, your electrical certificate, your EPC, obviously got to be an year or above if it's rented property. Insurance that you've got for the property, again, that will usually need to be amended to reflect the new incoming lender, and you can do that through the process. And then you've also got, you know, we're both from Wales, so you'd have your Rent Smart Wales if it's a Welsh property, or if it's, you know, HMO, or if you're in a selective licensing area, you're going to need your property license as well. So trying to get those documents bundled up early, get them over to solicitor, and they've got everything then in the file all ready to go when the mortgage is offered, and anything else you've got. So like we've said before, you know, any works that have been carried out, certificates, building regulations, etc., windows, doors, heating, extensions, electrics, anything you've done, get it all over to your solicitor, and they can then review that in short order then, rather than you and them going back and forth to try and resolve documents.
So not dissimilar to a sale in that sense then, it's just providing your solicitor with basically everything that is included in the property in paperwork terms. So
Exactly.
they've got it and can just pass it straight on rather than having to go look at it.
I mean, inevitably, there will probably still be other things that are needed. If you're doing this through a limited company, most lenders would require independent legal advice, because most people would then be acting as a guarantor for the mortgage. So what that means is that you've got your mortgage deed, that you're agreeing to the terms of the mortgage and agreeing to abide by it. But then you'd also have a separate document, personal guarantee, where you have to take independent legal advice before you go ahead and proceed with that mortgage, because you, in your individual name, in your individual capacity, would be acting as guarantor for the limited company. So it's a big legal obligation on you as a person there, which is why you need to take independent advice on it before you enter into it.
Touching on that then, if there were multiple people involved in your company, say for example there were 3 directors, would you have to have independent legal advice, or could you have it as you're the 3 directors, this is me giving you the independent legal advice?
Good question. Depends on the mortgage lenders usually, so it depends on their criteria. Most lenders would want you to have the advice independently to make sure that there's no duress and there's no pressure being put on from one of the directors to the others, etc. So just to make sure you've been given the advice from that solicitor independently and that you've understood it and you're happy to proceed without any pressure from anyone else. That can usually, though, be the same solicitor giving you all the advice, but it has to be someone who's independent of that transaction.
Yeah, makes sense. In that case, then, when we're comparing a remortgage to a sale, the remortgage is actually a lot quicker. So we can start.
Generally speaking, yeah. You know, as long as you've got your mortgage there in place, you know, and then all the documents are there as well. You know, you are looking at, I don't know, in general, maybe 4 to 6 weeks, something like that. Getting it to
6 to,
as opposed to what we were talking about the other day, I think it was 16 to 20 weeks potentially for a general sale. I was
6 weeks to 6 months.
Yeah. So and again, this is a rough rule of thumb, because every property is different, every mortgage lender is different, and every law firm and every surveyor and, you know, every transaction is completely different. There will be inevitably remortgages that we've got and other people have acted on that take much longer, because there's bespoke conditions, there's requirements, there's further work to be carried out. So, you know, sometimes one set of inquiries and one set of requirements is done, and that's fine. Sometimes you've got to go back and forth on different things and further surveys, further reports. Some mortgage lenders require not just you to carry out these documents, but they require full searches to be carried out. So then you've got that remortgage would take, you know, not dissimilar time to a sale, because you've got to wait for searches to come back. And, you know, nationally at the moment, it can take a long time in certain areas.
There are a lot of moving parts that need to work efficiently in order for the transaction to run as smoothly as possible. And I think from my experience anyway, that's what comes from having good relationships with your solicitors, good relationships with your mortgage brokers. So all of these people could work on your behalf proactively, because the last thing you need if you're an investor is things beyond your control slowing down the process, I suppose.
And also, you know, another key component to the remortgage element is also, I suppose, your letting agents. You know, if you've got someone managing the property for you, they should have lots of these documents. You know, the legally required documents, if they're managing the property for you, you know, you can just put A together with B. So, you know, providing you've got a good relationship with your solicitors, your broker, your letting agent, you can put them together and say, you know, one needs to give X documents to the other one, and then, you know, so on and so forth, really. So they can generally take care of lots of it for you. Doesn't always work that well, but it can work well if all parties are sort of working effectively towards the same end goal, and doing so with, you know, good communication throughout, really.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, John, that's fantastic. I appreciate 2 weeks on the bank. You spending me your time. Please don't send me the bill.
Always happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks very much. All right, John, and hopefully I'll catch you soon. Really appreciate you giving your time and your expertise.
No problem. Just one thing I was going to say, sorry, I forgot to mention this earlier, that I'm sure you'll be able to pop it into the comments section or the information description, just in relation to a lot of the things that we've discussed in terms of the requirements for landlords. I know there are associations out there that can help, you know, both new and experienced landlords, in terms of like the National Landlords Association. There's quite a few of them out there that are really good and informative. I'm sure Jamie can leave a couple of links in the description, just to give a bit of guidance for people who perhaps have got some questions or concerns or things that they're not quite sure about. Things like how to structure your assured short occupancy. Which documents do you need to rent that property? How do you protect the tenant's deposit in a way that is legal? So might be worth just providing a few links to people there who can use those resources there, and they're really quite helpful. And I don't think the cost is massive either, really.
Yeah, no problem at all. I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you, John. Appreciate your time.
All right, catch up soon.
Take
All the
care.
best.
Thank you.
Bye
Bye-bye.
now.